Welcome to the Rethink Leadership Podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine, CEO of Performance Works International. This podcast is grounded in business, digital, workforce and leadership transformation for our times. My aim is to initiate conversations with experts, leaders, professionals who've got a story to tell and who we can all learn from. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. I'm sure you'll find something of interest. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Rethink Leadership Podcast. Today we're talking about planning and executing great hybrid events. And joining me are two learning professionals who do this day in, day out, Laura Overton and Joe Cook. Laura is the founder of Learning Changemakers, co-creator of Emerging Stronger, is a learning pioneer, researcher and innovator, and she practices what she preaches in front of the camera, on stages and everywhere in the L&D space. As does Joe Cook, co-founder and director of Lightbulb Moment, with a background in L&D, journalism and someone who has been running virtual events for over 10 years already. Together, Laura and Joe work to plan, execute and moderate hybrid conferences for everyone, anywhere. And they've recently pulled together their learnings into a new white paper, a journey into rethinking hybrid conferences. It's a must-have blueprint for anybody looking to plan, run, execute, manage their hybrid events, conferences and meetings. It's also so relevant for how we do business in the new normal. So let's hear what Laura and Joe have to say and what they can share to help you with your next hybrid event. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Rethink Leadership Podcast. Joe and Laura, thanks very much for joining me. And Laura, let me start with you. Please introduce yourself, your journey in business as a learning pro, and tell us something that we might not know about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting us onto the podcast today. My name's Laura Overton. I have been in the learning and development field for too many decades. I don't really want to be able to say that right now. But basically, I've been known for my work as a learning and development analyst and speaker, facilitator, writer, researcher. And basically, Jeremy, I'm just an explorer in our field. I'm absolutely fascinated at the impact that learning and development professionals can make on individuals, on teams and organizations, and what a tough journey that we have. So I run an organization called Learning Changemakers, and it's all about building up and encouraging and building the courage of learning professionals so they can do an incredible job in this world. And it's basically why I love working with Joe, because if ever there was a learning change maker in our industry, Joe is one.
You are too kind.
Well, I think you both are, and I've had the pleasure of working with you both on a couple of conferences, and hence why I wanted to bring you on as guests to this podcast as well. And Laura, tell us something that we might not know about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am somebody who I love to explore. And I think my big thing from a professional perspective is that I'm always pinching ideas off of other disciplines. And it's just something that I just can't help myself but do. But I'm reading about things that are completely unrelated to our field, and always looking for inspiration on how I can think differently about my own field. So some people may have spotted that about what I do, but now everyone knows. So
It's absolutely out there. But hey, it's always be learning, right? And you don't know where you're going to get that learning from. The most unusual sources sometimes, not just the traditional ones. So Joe, let me ask you the same questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and something that we might not know about you.
Okay, so I've been working in learning and development, I'll be honest this time, 25 odd years I've been doing this. And I've been around education stuff almost since I was a teenager, if I'm honest with you. I did study as a journalist, and I use all of those skills in L&D. And I've worked for CNN, I've worked for Bupa International, charity sector, further in higher education. And for the last 10 years, I've specialised in live online learning. It's actually 10 years next year. Can you believe it? And that's what I absolutely love. I love L&D as a whole. You know, I was deputy editor for Training Journal as a while. So having that breadth across those different disciplines and subjects was amazing. But specialising in helping people with their virtual learning, with their webinars, with their hybrid conferences, you know, this is something that's really quite special and quite needed. So I run Lightbulb Moment along with my brother. We are business partners and we run that together. So there's a whole adventure there working with your brother. And something people don't know, I'm going to go something slightly different, something I used to do, and talking about kind of different experiences that we bring with you. So I like to call myself a biker sans bike. So I don't have any motorbikes anymore, but I used to. And one of the things I used to do was be a marshal at British Superbikes. So I used to be in very attractive orange overalls and one of those people that would wave the flags. And I had training with a fire extinguisher to go and pick people up off their motorbikes. So that was a completely different experience from what I do day to day. So it's a long time ago now, but that's something that maybe not a lot of people know.
Well, I didn't know that, and I'd never have guessed that either. Thanks for sharing that with us, Joe. And I'm going to stick with you, actually, because you and Laura, you've launched this brilliant brand new white paper, A Journey into Rethinking Hybrid Conferences very now. So many great insights. And I'd love to know what drove it, first of all, and why you feel that report is so important for today's business.
Okay, well, thank you for your compliments and thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk about this, because so many organisations of all types, of all sizes and all sectors are running hybrid events now. And to ensure that people who are attending remotely aren't just given a live stream of something interesting happening elsewhere, we wanted to show how you could really design a virtual experience that brought together the point of view of two different audiences and really made it feel like one event for everyone and not just one audience getting the short end of the stick, which is what often happens.
And I suppose that's and let me bring Laura into this here, because I suppose based on your findings as well, I'd love to know this, how therefore a hybrid conference is different from a traditional face-to-face event and why we should take serious note.
Well, I'll let you into a secret, Joe. I hope you don't mind telling Jeremy this secret. It's only the three of us here. But when we were first asked to consider creating a hybrid conference, both of us said, no way, no thank you. I had been chairing an international conference for 10 years, face-to-face with Speaks Exchange in Berlin. And we had already built up a really great reputation for this exchange to be an exchange of information. And during COVID, there was this opportunity to say, okay, well, do we take this online? And I said, well, if I'm going to do it online with anyone, I want to do it with Joe. Because you just, and both of us were like, we really don't want to, because we've had so many bad experiences where if you're in the classroom or if you're in the face-to-face environment, the online people just get a video of what's going on and don't feel connected in any shape or form. And very few people have got it right at that point in time. But basically, we broke out of, as soon as we were allowed to, we broke out of COVID. Restrictions, and we had a coffee together and we said, well,
the world's longest coffee. I think there might have been 3 or 4 coffees involved.
It was the world's longest coffee, and said, well, if Joe and I were to do a hybrid conference, how would we do it? How would we design it from scratch? And I think to your point, your question, Jeremy, what makes it different is that picking up from what Joe was saying, it was always about let's be agnostic about the space. let's put the individual, the participant, right at the heart of this experience so that they get the same experience wherever they're at, if they're on a table discussion in the room or if they're in a breakout online. We get the opportunity for them to be able to connect and learn from each other. And I think the other key finding for us as well was the fact that as we didn't have speakers doing lectures, but we actually invited contributors to stimulate conversation. So everyone who was on the platform, in inverted commas, was actually there to say, we want to be part of the next hour is a conversation. It's a place where we can all converse together about a challenge. And we've invited our contributors to seed that conversation rather than to be the experts, which of course they were. And everyone, luckily, what made, our findings, all the contributors actually were really confident and happy to experiment with that new format. So instead of having an hour, Jeremy, what made it different? It was actually, this was an hour of focus of everyone, participants and contributors, all focusing on a common challenge together, stimulated by the speakers. And then we used that kind of connectivity that only hybrid could give us, of being really be able to use polls and word clouds and conversation and chat, and Joe and I having conversation together, whereas she brought me into the online world, I brought her into the face-to-face world. It was this kind of like seamless kind of process that we tried to create, where the participant and the problem was always at the center of our process. So it was a little bit different. A little bit scary, Joe, huh?
Oh my goodness, especially the first one we did.
Yeah.
We planned it to within an inch of its life. And by that, I mean actually down to the minute in some cases. Not everything, but some things were planned down to the minute. And some of the ad hoc stuff was completely planned. A lot of it wasn't planned, but we were ad hoc anyway, and that worked too. And if you could have seen a transcript of our WhatsApp group kind of going, oh my God, we've got 10 minutes. What do we do? Quick, invent a panel discussion. Okay, go. But it wasn't like too reactive, because actually a lot of these things we'd planned or discussed beforehand. So we were picking up plans that weren't on paper, but were options. So yeah, it was scary. But because we'd looked so hard at the vision and values and what guided us, and then we'd planned so much, and obviously we'd done all the technology testing and all of that other good stuff, that's when it worked. And all the stuff that didn't work, nobody noticed, which is really important.
But Jeremy, I think, if I may, can I ask you a question? We don't want to hog your podcast, although clearly
we are taking over now.
But you took part as a contributor in both as an online contributor and as a face-to-face contributor. It's all very well us saying, oh, this is a great program, but how did it actually work for you? What was your experience of being part of that process?
Well, you made it look and be easy for those of us who are either contributing or taking part. So for me, it was seamless, and it didn't matter whether I was online or whether I was face to face in either of those moments. I felt part of it, and I felt connected to the conference. I felt connected to you both, not just the person I was with either online or you, Laura, live this most recent time. And what I really loved, and echoing what you talked about, Laura, what I really loved were that the participants were always at the heart of things. So the way that you briefed us also as contributors was quite different in many ways to what I might have done in a live conference. And it shouldn't have been, but this has helped us almost fine tune it. And it helped us connect, share, drive mutual learning, those kind of things. Contributors stimulate the conversation, they don't hog it, those kind of things. And it makes it ultimately more practical for both the participants, but also us as contributors who become part of the learning experience too. So that's my take out of it. What do you say to that, Laura?
I love that, because what I think is really interesting, having chaired conferences, maybe not as many as Laura, but a few, is that sometimes you don't know a lot about the content and what's driving the person. It's a little bit more of a logistical conversation. But with Laura and I, and the way we planned this conference, I knew so much about the content that was being delivered by you and the other contributors. I learned from that. And hopefully, I know certainly for a few of our contributors, they learned much more about the digital approach. So like you say, it was learning all round, not just for people attending, it was for absolutely everybody, which I think is really important.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to stay with you there, Jo, because what you've been able to do is you've been able to consolidate this in a fantastic kind of insights document for anybody who's doing this, your journey into rethinking hybrid conferences. So from that and those experiences that we've been discussing, what are the challenges and new opportunities that present themselves when designing hybrid events, conferences, or even meetings that are done this way?
Yeah. So the reason that they're so popular, that hybrid is so popular, is since the global pandemic, individuals, teams, organizations, decision makers, whole industries have seen that their meetings, their get-togethers, their work and their learning can be done virtually. So for so many people, whether, life had to go on, work had to go on, and the reach of those meetings or collaboration or learning, that could be extended in a way that had never been done before. And now that flexible working and hybrid working are so much more prevalent in a lot of organizations, then the opportunities for the hybrid events really can bring this all together. But the challenge is doing it well. So just like in 2019, so many people said that their work or their training could not be delivered virtually. And they discovered in 2020, when they had their hand forced, of course, most of it could be done. But the challenge now has gone from it can't work to, yeah, but it's not really that good. But that's because a lot of the time virtual offerings weren't designed, they weren't delivered by someone trained and experienced enough. So of course they won't be any good. And that's the basic challenge of hybrid events now. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, I was writing as you were talking there, and I think that one of the things that I've learned and experienced within this, and it links very close to what you said about that journey through the pandemic of remote work and so on, is that this stuff takes a lot more planning and preparation. And that's often where it falls down. And without that in place, you're not considering all of those moving parts which you need to manage, including, of course, the technology. And when you've got a conference, rather than just your own technology and your own little meeting, let's say online, that's far more important to look at. So that for me is where the rubber hits the road. And I'm going to come back to you, Laura, and put you on the spot here and, get out some of those great key messages that you've got in that white paper and from your experience. What are the must-dos when we do start designing hybrid conferences then? What has to happen?
Well, people haven't picked it up already. It's clearly putting the learner or the participant first. And also having kind of a unifying vision. One of the things I think you probably picked up from both Jo and I already is that we didn't just want to run a conference, but we wanted to actually really help those who are a part of it change their lives. There was something practical, that's something useful, there's something inspirational, something they could do. And there was a really strong vision about that was communicated, not just in terms of come along to this conference, but also in terms of communicating it to the contributors, communicating it to each other, working out how we could interconnect the ideas of the contributors with the ideas of the participants, how we use the technology to surface those. We didn't want to use technology just for the sake of it, but how do we use it so it brings a better connection around the purpose that brought us here in the first place? And I think it was that level of energy that really makes the difference. We didn't use technology for the sake of it. We could. There was a plenty of different options, but we wanted to make it as simple as possible for everybody to be able to be involved and feel that their ideas mattered and that they were contributing to something that was bigger than themselves. And if they have to kind of trip themselves up because 1 minute we're using a widget here and a thingy there and a what's it there, and the technology is fabulous, but it can really distract from our core vision. And I think that they are some of the must-dos. Make it simple, make it inclusive, ensure that we've got a common vision of what we all want to achieve and get out of this, and that we all know, and there's expectations are set. This is what it's going to be like. And some people don't like that. Some people like to just sit and listen. And then suddenly, within 10 minutes, no, we're doing something. We're working on it. We're owning it. And I think that's really what, love it or hate it, that's what they got.
Yeah, but you know what's really interesting while you're talking is that I could have asked you a question about modern business or modern leadership in the hybrid world and how you do this, and it could have been exactly the same answer. Let's have a common vision. Communication is the key. Collaboration. Have tech that doesn't overwhelm, but it enables our co-working and collaboration. As important as it is for the conferences, the meetings that you're running, it's as important if how we do business these days, isn't it? Internally and externally. So a great link of getting this right to actually getting so much more right. And maybe this is an unfair question. I mean, would you agree with that, Joe, that sentiment?
Of course, absolutely. And so many of our cultural challenges, our technical challenges, they're interwoven. And I don't know whether you like this phrase or not, but often they start at the top. And therefore, the solution starts at the top. I mean, your book is all about this, about all of us being leaders and all of us taking this on board, but especially people in those senior and decision-making roles. And that's one of the reasons for our white paper is we really wanted to help people think about this. I had a conversation with somebody recently who'd downloaded the paper, phoned me up for a chat, and that was exactly what had happened, because he said, we've been thinking about running a hybrid event. I don't really know what's involved, but having read the paper, it's made me think much more from the learner point of view rather than from how do we sell tickets and how should we price it and what technology do we need. And maybe thinking about that in that way for one event is also going to roll out and maybe help people think about that for their staff and for all of the other parts of their business as well. So yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Well, let me stick with you on that then and just go into that a little bit deeper and bring out from your experience and from the white paper there those top tips and traps to avoid when you are planning and running that hybrid conference or the hybrid meeting. What kind of nuggets can you give us, Joe?
I think probably the biggest one is that you are designing a digital event. So, your vision, your values, all of this stuff that Laura's talked about, absolutely essential in terms of that guiding star. But then when we start thinking about, a little bit more about the logistics and the technology and how is it going to work, it's a digital event. It's not a face-to-face conference. Oh, and we've got some people dialing in, because that's a very different experience. We've all had those, telephone meetings where everyone in the room vote, right, okay, this goes through. And you're thinking, well, hang on, I'm on the phone and no one's actually asked me for my vote verbally. So if you imagine that multiplied by a conference or a hybrid learning event with maybe hundreds of people, if not thousands, and there you can see the risk. Whereas if you design it as a digital event, that you happen to have one or more in-person audiences. Now, the conference we're talking about had one audience in Berlin, but you might have another audience in Australia and another audience in Cambodia and so on. It might be more than one individual in-person audience, and you've got everybody who's digitally. So you need to put in, quite frankly, the time, the resources, the staff. They need the right experience to be able to do this. And by all means, if you just want to live stream your event, if you just want videos going out there, that's absolutely fine, but call it that. Don't call it a hybrid conference, because people can't get involved. If you want to do a live stream, great, go for it. But if you do want to do the hybrid event, people need to be able to ask questions, to liaise with the other people attending wherever they are. And you really need a good team of people. So Laura and I have written this paper about how we designed this, but the whole event, as we talk about in the paper, it included an audiovisual team. It included staff from Speaks as well. It was not just us two running this event. It would have been very different if it was just Laura and me. So you need a whole team. You need really detailed planning, good documentation, obviously excellent technical skills, or the right people need the technical skills for this all to work. And whether that's 1 or 2 people in your team, or whether that's 10 people and you have a big budget, that obviously depends on your organisation, the number of people, the size of your event, the resources, what you want to get out of it, and so on. But yeah, they're the kind of key points, I think.
I think another thing as well with that is that it's also about chemistry. And I think that's a really important thing. We're talking about all the digital and all the planning, and that's if we didn't have a plan, we wouldn't be able to riff. Yeah. We wouldn't be able to have that energy between Joe and myself. Sort of, it's like Joe was in the room. We got Joe introducing face-to-face speakers. I introduced speakers that were coming in online. There was a constant banter and energy about that process, which needs to be infectious. And you don't just get that accidentally. You get that through planning, through knowing your stuff, through trusting everybody
working together.
Yeah, everyone who's in that room. Trusting that we all know our roles and we've all got each other's backs covered. And that trust creates trust in the contributors, it creates trust in the participants, and it creates trust in the process. But it's important to have that structure with a little bit of kind of magic sprinkle of chemistry as well. I think really also makes a difference. You got to have that energy. You got to believe in what you're doing and believe it's going to make a difference to people who are connecting with you.
You do. And having witnessed this firsthand, you both invest so much of yourselves in this. You demonstrate that energy, you energize the others there, because you still have to do all of those things as well, particularly if it's a long conference and so on. And so you've got to be invested physically, intellectually, the participants in mind. You've got to build that trust. As you said, Joe, it's a digital event, so you've got to be on top of that as well and be really planful of it. But I'm guessing, Laura, coming back to you on that when you do get that right, the benefits when you compare it to doing this traditionally, because you've orientated yourselves quite differently, can also be quite different. I'd love you to bring out what the benefits are of executing this well, but also the downsides if you don't get it right and you don't manage all of these moving parts very well.
Well, I think some of the benefits we've already hinted at. There's a sense of inclusivity in this process, which goes way beyond just, whether the participants feel as though they belong and that they're listened to. The fact that a conference is hybrid, it allowed us, we designed it in 4 chunks that potentially all were standalone. And each audience could come into any one of those chunks. And that allowed us to have a much more inclusive global audience. I think the registrations this year, we had capacity for about 100 in the room itself, but there was something like, I think between 500 and 600 people registered to attend all parts.
Much more than that, Laura. It was nearly 900 people in the end.
Well, there you go. There you go. Keeping on top of the numbers is a critical element of the book, obviously.
This is why we make a good team.
But seriously, that inclusivity meant that people had the opportunity to connect and engage. And honestly, we saw that people would only come to one of those chunks. There's only so much you can have, and even however much energy we put into it, Zoom fatigue. But, we found that those whose time zones would permit were staying for the whole of the days. And we created spaces in between, encourage people to get up, move around, go for a walk, have a meal. We encourage that both in the room and online. So inclusivity was absolutely critical for the experience. The other thing is that we've done this twice now. And certainly last year, where we were still uncertainty with COVID and with traveling, and we had this all set up. And I think something like 3 or 4 of our speakers and contributors right at the last minute couldn't make it to go into Berlin. Absolutely no problem. We didn't even miss a beat. We had people calling in from the States, people calling in from the UK. It didn't matter where the contributors were, whether they were online or whether they were in the room. So in terms of managing uncertainty, managing risk, the system worked way far and above than we thought it would do in terms of giving that seamless experience really from that. And really those were the two things that I think just allowed the show to go on. And allowed as many people to be involved in that process as possible. They were the benefits. Going horribly wrong, you could say some of your speakers dropping out would go horribly. That wasn't one of the problems, really, for us. We didn't have anything that went horribly wrong because of the plan, because everyone knew what they were doing. What could have gone wrong is we were expecting a word cloud to come up and it didn't quite work because we hadn't quite tested it. We were expecting someone to come off mic and their mic didn't work. The testing, the planning made sure that we eliminated the risk before it actually happened. So, Joe, I don't know, the downsides if we don't get it right. Any more from you?
I think the downsides are about the reputation of your event, the experience that people might have, and what the implications are of that. If it's a staff event, how does that make them feel at work? Do they feel valued? Are you going to lose them? Is it just another nail in the coffin for their experience at work? If they are paying clients or potentially paying clients or leads you're trying to generate, if they have a bad experience, they are not going to buy something for you. There is no way they're going to drop into that sales funnel. And if they are somebody that you're trying to help learn or change their behavior in some way, if they are not emotionally invested in this, if they are not actively involved in that learning, whether that's virtual face-to-face or hybrid, then you are limiting your chances to be able to do that. We were speaking to someone recently and they were in an academic setting and they were told off because they'd done 15 minutes of delivery and had got their attendees to do half an hour of stuff in their topic area. And they were being told off because they weren't teaching them for that 45 minutes. And to you and I mean, this just sounds ridiculous, obviously, but that's the potential negative outcome, is that people don't get the experience that they've paid for, they deserve, or that you need them to have for whatever your business goals are.
Well said. And that reputational point being so important these days as well, internally and externally, is your opportunity or it's your big risk. And that's why you have to put in so much more work for this. And some of these things are really worth reinforcing. Again, that inclusivity, you've got the potential for a broader audience. You talk about your 900 registrations. That would never have happened with a one track conference. So it gives you that immediate contingency that enables people from anywhere to join if they wish, as well as live. And I also like the point that you both picked up at different times here, is that the planning is so important, but it's also about that testing and practice to eliminate some of those glitches, because you just need to be more planful of this, and people shouldn't underestimate the time.
And I think another element to this is actually having people who are experienced in what they do. So, I've done chairing of conferences. I've done some of what Laura does. Would I want to do what Laura did on that day? No, she is the expert. And probably Laura would not want to do what I did on that day. But this is where we draw on our expertise. So I'll be really honest with you. Something technologically went wrong on our second conference. And it wasn't a major thing, but it was a thing that went wrong. And I was going to be like, okay, But because I had the knowledge and I had the experience and I had the technology available to me, I could fix it before it was a big issue. And there was a couple of minor glitches. Most people didn't notice. Maybe 3 people sent me a message saying this doesn't work out of 900 people that registered. So that's another important thing. Yes, the planning, but it's having that experience to fix things when they potentially go wrong. And I think this kind of leads me into, the must-dos on the day of the event. Laura talked about how important it was to have that trust. And part of that trust comes through that communication. So obviously we had it in all the planning in the run up. We've done one before, but on the day we have a WhatsApp group. Other messaging systems are available. And so we had one between kind of a group of 4 of us who were the core group running the conference. I had one with the tech guys. I had one with another tech guy. Laura and I had one on our own if we needed to, and not bombard everyone. But the point being, this really helped us to kind of go, we're behind time, let's drop this. Or we're ahead of time, let's flex and do this thing instead. And that communication was really, really important. And on the day of your event, you need to be at your event early. You need to be live online early and double checking and triple checking everything, all your documents, all your timings, all of your backup systems and options. So there's the tech part that you need to do. But also there's the importance of what Laura was doing in the room, which is just talking to people and making them feel comfortable and making sure everything's ready. And my job online, doing the welcome, making sure people feel comfortable and gearing up for that interaction and that engagement, and not just you sit back and listen to a live stream. So that's where that trust and that comes from, and executing that day really, really well.
Yes. And it's beginning to resonate, I'm sure, for everybody tuning into this as well, just how much you've got to think about and how working as a team can really be a benefit within this. You talk about all these different people involved, and I'm going to come to both of you for maybe it's a summary, but an opportunity for you to give me some advice. So let's say I am running my event tomorrow. So it's a go. It's live. Laura, I'm going to come to you first for, okay, what are my 2 or 3 must-dos to make sure it's a success? And then I'll come to you, Jo.
Well, if you're in the room, look down the camera, because you want to be there for everybody, not just for people in the room. So think inclusivity all the time. Everything that you do, where physically where you are, your energy, who you ask questions to, help people feel as though they belong. And I think that would be that's my kind of gut reaction. Because to be honest, Jeremy, if you're only doing it tomorrow, you haven't got a lot of time to put all this big plan in. So I would say, at least do that. And I think that will make a world of difference to make people feeling that this is a place they want to be.
Yeah, beautifully put, Laura. Jo, what else can you give me in terms of tips for my go live now?
Okay, love what Laura said. I think I'm going to go with the technical documentation side of things. And I think it would be, if it's tomorrow, tonight, review all your documentation, review all your tests, make sure that you know everything is right and in place, that there's nothing that's a bit woolly. We're just going to see how that bit goes, because that's the bit that will probably go wrong. And just make sure all of that is ready and you are ready and comfortable, whether you're doing online or in person or a bit of both, that you know how that's going to work. Because the times things have gone wrong for me are the times when I don't know what's happening. And the times things go right, it's because I've put the planning and the prep in and I know everything is going okay. Even if that knowing is, Laura's got this, it's her bit, that's okay too. And that's where your team comes in. So yeah, just check everything and all of your team knows what's going on.
Great. Well, I'll let you know how it goes.
Good luck.
Oh, it sounds easy.
Yeah. We are not available tomorrow.
Right. Well, sobering food for thought for those of us that are looking to run these hybrid events. So for both of you, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. I know a lot of people who are listening or watching will want to get hold of the report, want to continue the discussion with you both. How does that happen? Where do they get it, and how do they get hold of you?
I think the best thing to do is follow either us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter. You can find us. The actual report you can find on lightbulbmoment.info. You can find it on that website. It's quite a long URL, so I won't read it out here. I know you'll put it in the show notes for us. On Twitter, I'm at lightbulbjoe. I'm Joe Cook on LinkedIn. And Laura?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. You can follow me at Laura Overton, and also be writing about this on the Learning Change Makers newsletter on LinkedIn as well. So do give that a follow, because we are constantly doing things where we can explore and connect and engage together. So love to see you there.
Great. Well, look, thank you so much again for joining me, both of you. Enjoy your next conference. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or simply go to performanceworks.global to access all the episodes to date. We'll see you next time.